Born July 3, 1961, in Toppenish, Washington. He came from a good background, brought up in a decent household. Even though much love was shared, he grew up in a peaceful environment. Westley Dodd was a predator who fell through the cracks of an inefficient, overburdened legal system, graduating from relatively harmless acts of exhibitionism to the depths of sadistic child molestation and murder before he was finally caged and condemned. A native of Washington State, Dodd was conscious of his sexual attraction to neighborhood boys by age 9, a full 6 years before his parents divorced and cast the family into disarray. By age 14, he had begun to dabble in exhibitionism, flashing other children from his bedroom window until one reported him and the police were called. Dodd got off easy that time, since the witness had not seen his face, and the experience taught him to seek his pleasure further afield. In short order, he graduated from exposing himself to more aggressive actions, fondling and filleting any children who were willing to submit. By the time he entered high school, Dodd had progressed to child molestation, beginning with his younger cousins, and then neighborhood children he offered to babysit, as well as the children of a woman his father was dating. At the age of 15, Dodd was arrested for indecent exposure, but police released him with a recommendation of juvenile counseling. In August 1981, at the age of 20, Dodd tried to abduct 2 girls, who reported him to the police. No action was taken. The following month, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy, and was assigned to the submarine base in Bangor, Washington, where he began abusing children who lived on the base. On December 29, 1982, Dodd was jailed again, this time in Benton City, Washington, for undressing a youngster he lured away from a playground. He pled guilty on that charge in January 1983, and served a total of 30 days before he was released to seek court-ordered counseling. By all accounts, the treatment was a failure. With the court's permission, Dodd went to live with his father in Lewiston, Idaho, where he signed up for another outpatient program and was said to be making some progress. His June 1984 arrest for molesting a 9-year-old boy would suggest that counselors were mistaken in their assessment of Dodd. Sentenced to 10 years in prison for lewd conduct with a minor, he served less than 4 months before his term was commuted to 1 year in county jail, that sentence suspended on condition that he seek further treatment. By 1986, Dodd was back in the Vancouver area, pursuing his interest in children full-time. On June 13, 1987, he was arrested after trying to lure a young boy into a vacant building. Convicted on a misdemeanor count of attempted unlawful imprisonment, he was released in October with yet another order for psychiatric treatment. Dodd went through the motions until his probation expired, in the fall of 1988, at which time he promptly abandoned his therapy and went back on the hunt. By that time, he had started to collect his morbid daydreams in a diary, complete with discussion of planned rapes and murders, sketches of a torture rack he planned to build, and details of a private pact with Satan to assist him in obtaining victims. On September 4, 1989, Dodd went to Vancouver's David Douglas Park, with a fish fillet knife and shoelaces, and sought out young boys to kill. He lured 2 brothers, 11 and 10-year-old Cole and William Neer, to a secluded area, where he forced them to undress, tied them to a tree and performed sex acts on them both. When he was done, he stabbed them repeatedly with a knife and fled the scene. The boys were soon discovered in the park. Cole was dead at the scene, while William died en route to a nearby hospital. As his crime spree continues, Dodd found a 4-year-old boy playing alone in an elementary school playground. He coaxed Lee Iselli home with him to play some games. When we got there, I told him he had to be real quiet because my neighbor lady didn't like kids, Dodd said. He then stripped off Leaselly's clothes, tied the boy to the bed, and began taking Polaroid pictures as he molested the child. He later mounted the photos in a 4-inch by 6-inch pink photo album labeled Family Memories. He paused at one point to make an entry in his diary. 6:30 p.m. will probably wait until morning to kill him. That way his body will still be fairly fresh for experiments after work. Dodd began strangling the boy at 5:30 am. He revived the child twice before finally killing him, and hanging the body in a closet and burning the boy's clothing, except the Ghostbusters underpants, which he kept as a trophy. On November 13, 1989, Dodd drove to Commerce, Washington, around 12 miles east of Vancouver, where he attempted to abduct 6-year-old James Kirk II from the restroom of the New Liberty Theater. The child began fighting and crying as Dodd was leaving the theater through the lobby, carrying the boy in his arms. Despite Dodd's attempts to calm the boy, theater employees became suspicious and followed Dodd out to the street. Due to their pursuit, Dodd released his victim, got into his car, and drove away. In addition to the brutal nature of the crimes, part of what got the case so much attention is that Dodd appeared to like the attention that came with his arrest. He kept news clippings of the crime, watched himself on TV, kept a diary. During his trial in Clark County Superior Court, the prosecution read aloud excerpts of Dodd's diary and displayed photographs of Leaselly. The defense did not call any witnesses or present any evidence, suggesting only that Dodd must be legally insane. The jury found Dodd guilty. Prosecutors requested the death penalty and the jury agreed. Dodd would claim that speaking in his own defense was pointless, and ultimately, the system had failed repeatedly. Washington state law gave Dodd the choice of execution by lethal injection or by hanging. Dodd stated that he wished to die by hanging because that was how he had killed Leaselly, his last victim. Dodd was in the odd position of having to defend his decision to die. I didn't offer any mitigating evidence during the penalty phase because, in my mind, that's just an excuse. And I don't want to make any excuses, he told the court. I do not blame the criminal justice system for anything. But the system does not work and I can tell them why, he said. It doesn't really matter why the crimes happened. I should be punished to the full extent of the law, as should all sex offenders and murderers. Dodd stated that if his death would bring relief to victims' families, then he should die as soon as possible. After the sentence, Dodd insisted that hanging was the appropriate means of execution, and that he did not want his death delayed by appeals. I must be executed before I have an opportunity to escape or kill someone within the prison. If I do escape, I promise you I will kill and rape and enjoy every minute of it, he told the court. He wanted to hang, he said, because that's the way Leaselly died. The judge set Dodd's execution date for January 5, 1993, in Walla Walla, Washington. The ACLU fought to keep Dodd off the gallows, arguing that death, especially hanging, was cruel and unusual punishment. But Washington's justice system prevailed, and Dodd's execution date moved closer. By choosing a particularly cruel form of capital punishment, hanging, Dodd fiercely polarized the capital punishment debate, and many rallied to stop the execution. Although Dodd indicated he wanted to die, it seemed that he wanted to die martyr, not as a criminal. His last words, he said, I was once asked by somebody, I don't remember who, if there was any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong. For many observers, however, The idea of giving Dodd the death he requested did not sit right. National attention to Dodd's execution, due to the gruesome nature of his crimes, drove conversations about how society addressed sex offenders. That his prior run-ins with the law had not gotten him off the streets left many feeling that such crimes were not taken seriously. Enough and about the meaning of capital punishment. Since Dodd's execution, 2 other hangings have taken place in the U.S., but other methods of execution have largely replaced it. Moreover, capital punishment has disappeared in many places throughout the United States. Thank you for watching Death Row.